I have the most amazing. Okay, peeps, I never get that excited about my guests because I really do talk to so many women. But Yolanda Williams, I have been craving for you, girl, since I watched you
Aw.
receive that award at the Scene event back in March, I think.
Yeah.
It was a really wonderful event where they were honoring entrepreneurs. You were one of 7 or 8, I believe. But to me, you stuck out the most because of your beautiful story. So you are the CEO and
Hmm.
co-owner of Creme Blends, which I love, by the way, a
Thank you.
natural skincare company. You
Hmm.
also are the co-director of Distinct Life brand developing agency. It's definitely a family biz. You are doing it with your bestie, hubby, love of your
Yeah.
life, your college sweetheart, Rick, which is a
Yes.
beautiful story in itself. But I want to go back a little bit here. Give me a little
Okay.
bit background of your childhood. What was going on?
From Detroit, so born and raised in Detroit. I am the oldest. I had two brothers. Came from a single mom home. I just was talking to someone yesterday. I went to a Pistons game and I ran into this guy that I went to high school with. And one of the things he said was like, "You've always been like who you are now." Like even when we were in, fourth, fifth grade, and this person that I ran into, we went to elementary, we went to middle school, high school, and college together. So to even hear that, because a lot of times you forget, what you were like, or you have this perception in your mind of, okay, this is what I was like as a child, from what I remember. But like they say, your brand is what other people say it is, not what you say it is. So to hear that, it just always confirms that I think as a child, like I've always been the same person that shows up today was the same kid that showed up back then. I'm just more confident. I'm more in tune with who I am, unapologetically who I am. And I think my childhood is one of the things that shaped that.
What did you study when you went off to college?
I went to Oakland University,
Hmm.
and my degree is in English. And I also have a master's degree in education, curriculum and instruction. So, writing, teaching, developing curriculums has all kind of spilled into what I do now with Distinct Life, with Creme Blends. Writing is a big part of, of business. So, in the beginning when I was doing it, a lot of people were like, I had family members that, were engineers and computer science and all that. They're like, what are you going to do with English? You're going to be broke, or you can teach. It's like always like, or you could just be a teacher. Like teachers aren't the most important people in our lives because they literally shape all of us into, eventually who we're going to be. So yeah, so English and education was my educational background.
I just realized I didn't know this about you that you
Mhm.
wrote a book.
I did, yeah. I wrote a memoir just talking about my experience with grief. So I grew up with two brothers. I am the oldest, and they are both deceased. Both of my brothers, one died in 2015, and then my second brother was killed in 2016 in Atlanta, Georgia. So yeah, so as the oldest sister, you just don't see your younger siblings, not being here, and you outliving, them. You're like, I'm the big sister. I do everything first, So in this case, that wasn't the case. So I did write a memoir about it, um, and released it when I turned 40, and it explores my experience with grief, and it talks about bringing the conversation of life back into the conversation on grief, and grief is teaching me more than just pain.
Hmm.
And so that's one of the things that I kind of focused on within the context of the book. And a lot of people are like, yeah, it really, like I expected it to just be about one thing and about grief, but it was so much more. So though, so that I did that. I think that, when did I turn 40? In 2022. Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna definitely have to get that book. It's called
Yeah.
Sorry for Your Loss.
But
And
what happened?
yeah, and
Yeah.
tell me something. How did you get through that? And can you just share a little bit about your
Hmm.
lowest point and then when you were able to flip it into creating a book and maybe helping others go through it?
Yeah. So like I said, so it happened. So the first loss happened in 2015. So 2015, then 2016. By
Okay.
2016,
Crazy.
I was already, it's like you feel like you have, like within the book there, I talk about this show Survivor that I watch.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a series, set of people go and they're competing against each other to survive like in the wilderness or whatever. So there's something that you can win called like an immunity idol, which means you're safe from elimination on the price. So if you find this immunity idol, you're immune at the next elimination. So within the book, I talk about, I felt like in 2015, we had the immunity idol now because you're like, this is my brother. They both were 30, which is also strange when they passed away a
Mm-hmm.
year apart because they were only like a year um, apart from each other, a year or two apart from each other. And I felt like we had the immunity idol because you're like, God wouldn't do this to us
Mm-hmm.
a second time. Like like this is devastating. So things are going to be pretty chill moving forward. And life doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2016 is when I decided it was a long journey. I didn't start off like grief is teaching me more than just pain and we'll get through it. Like you're really devastated. It literally is the most devastating thing that I've ever went through. And then watching my mother go through it twice has been heart wrenching, for me because I know the pain that I feel as their sister. My mom I have two boys. I couldn't imagine them not being here and dealing with it back to back. So I found a grief group for her. I was like, oh,
Okay.
I'm going to find like search for a grief group for her, but it can't be just any grief group because, you're dealing with people that, their parents are older and they died from cancer or old age or heart disease. Homicide is it's a different level of grief, especially when you're not a fan. Like my brothers weren't gang members or
Mm-hmm.
involved in selling drugs or anything. It literally was two random occurrences in two different states. One in Michigan, in Detroit, and then one in Atlanta, Georgia. My brother was a musician. He was about to sign with Atlantic Records as a writer, and all of that was taken away. So I was trying to find a grief group for her, so we found a group where everyone in the group, their loved ones died in a similar way. So then that way you're surrounded by people who you don't feel as
Mm-hmm.
alone, like, cause you feel like this was a personal attack. What did I do wrong? Like, we don't come from that type of family. Like, how you're supposed to die in the manner of which you lived. And you feel like this wasn't the way to go. So after finding the grief group, we did that for several years. And within the group, I remember the day when I just was like, okay, you're done. They didn't do anything wrong. I just knew I got to a place where I could hear no more stories.
Mm.
And I had to move forward or I would get stuck, not only in my grief, but now I am, like through what has happened, develop this kind of hypervigilance, um, post-traumatic stress. And so if you're hearing other people's stories all the time, you're really kind of showing up in the world feeling like what's going to happen. And
Mm-hmm.
each, like, these are older people, like people's parents. Had this one lady, her father was killed by someone who he let in that just was going to be fixing the TV or compute, like something within the house, and then he was murdered. So I started getting into these stories and
Yeah.
helping them research and find people, and like, so it was like, okay, now it's time. I developed a friendship with a lot of people in the group. My mom did as well, but then I moved on and I decided that I had to try to, individually deal with the grief on my own. So I started seeing a therapist, which literally, changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then through that therapy is when the therapy is when I decided to start writing the book and developing kind of like the bare bones of what the outline and everything would be. And then 2020 hit and I was sitting.
Mm.
Everybody was sitting. I wasn't shipping out any product. I wasn't making any product. All my employees were at home. Rick and I and our kids were at home. And I said, well, this might be the perfect time to start writing that book to give me something to focus on. In the middle, it was tragedy even when 2020, when the pandemic hit and it was so much going on. I just literally just went inward and started the process of the book and therapy. So I was doing therapy in the book, like so I would be going to
Mhm.
therapy once or twice a week, writing the book, learning more things about myself, writing the book, writing each chapter, reading it to my family, and so it was, it took about 2 years for me to get to the end of things, and I'm happy that I did, but in the process I had no idea what it was going to turn into, and it turned into something bigger than I even thought it would.
That's incredible story. There's so many elements and so many layers, and my heart breaks for you and your mother. And
Thank
but
you.
I'm also so
Yeah.
proud of you of the healing that you took.
Mhm.
My sister we lost our nephew to an overdose, and she
Wow.
too discovered the beauty in pain, if you will,
Mhm.
is learning to your point, like you can either simmer in that and get caught up in all the stories because there's a lot of ugliness in the world,
Ugly. Yeah.
right? And so
Mhm.
and it's easy to get like in that and to sort of rise above it and see, well, how do I make it count for something? Because it was not for nothing. Their lives were not for nothing. And that's
Right.
and how you flip that and now are helping empower others get through grief.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. So I'm
Thank
sure they're
you.
looking from above and
Yeah.
just so
They
proud of
are.
you.
They are. Yeah. There were two dogs. It's random, but there were
Uh,
two dogs that keep showing up at my house like the other day. So
really?
we opened the front. I opened my front door. They were lost, like a neighbor's dog. They're two like little miniature, like almost like baby, like pit bulls.
Okay.
And so I open my door, and they're literally like they're right there. Very nice dogs. So you could tell that they belong to a loving
Uh-huh.
family, and they just got out. So, I called, so our, animal, not to get them
Yes, I understand.
captured, but to let the family know,
Right.
okay, these dogs are roaming the neighborhood. And then, like 2 days later, they were back on my porch.
Hmm.
And normally, like you'll see stray dogs in the neighborhood, they don't keep coming back, but for some reason they came back. And I just told my family, I was like, I think those are my two brothers in spirit, just, just visiting to make sure that sis is okay. But yeah, so
Yeah.
like there's beauty in grief. It's like the feeling, it literally rips your heart out, but it shows you how to show up in the world differently. And I do
Hmm.
honestly feel like, not that I'm better than anyone, because there's still a lot of people here that I love that could, like, I'm not saying that's the worst, because what I'm like, you could say that's the worst, and it's not. There are people that have lost their entire family at one time. But I feel like I show up differently. There's a level of compassion and empathy, and you kind of show, that you don't have as much time as you thought to repair relationships, to go after your dreams, to like, and that's fueled me to where it's like, go for it. You don't
That
have
is so
time to
true.
just ponder and think about things for 10 years, and you're like, look, no, I'm going to get started today, even if my book isn't a New York Times bestseller, even if I don't have the best editor, like
Hmm.
Will Smith had, and for his book, or the best cover art or whatever. Like, we do things on our own to get messages out, to encourage other people instead of waiting. And I think grief has just showed me how to just keep going and try to figure it out as fast as you can to help others while you're here.
It's so true. That resonates with me deeply, because I really have flipped the narrative of my life too because of my nephew. And it's like, oh no,
Mhm.
I get to live this life, and nothing becomes a burden that way. It's like, no, it's a privilege, and we're here. So what are you going to do with it? What brand, what stamp are you going to live in life? So,
Yeah.
and you are definitely doing that. So
Yeah.
tell me about your
Mhm.
business and how it's evolved.
Yeah, so I started Creme Blends. I'll start with there first. So Creme
Okay.
Blends I started in 2013 in our home kitchen. And so we were already an entrepreneurship household. My husband was the owner of Burn Rubber, which is a sneaker boutique, that he started in 2007. Before Burn Rubber, we had a screen printing business in our townhome that we lived in right after college, and we started printing T-shirts and stuff for different companies. Oakland University was actually our very first client. Had no idea what we were doing, but that's just how we are. We just go for it. So in 2013, I started just experimenting with natural skincare products. Um, in the household. Soaps, body butters, candles were added kind of later, but it
Hmm.
started off with soaps, body butters, oils, and like exfoliating scrubs. So I would just start giving them to people to get their feedback. They loved it. Um, we did that for like maybe 4 or 5 months of just testing and seeing, how does it work? How long does it last? Does it turn to mold in 4 months or 5 months? So we did a lot of testing to figure it out. And then in December is when I launched the website, and then people started ordering and everything. And then by February, I was already in a meeting with the supplier. I mean, with Whole Foods, they were meeting with local Michigan suppliers. I was like, all right, I'll just go to the meeting. I have no idea what I'm doing. Went to the meeting, showed them the product. One thing that I think that helped us was the fact that Rick was already really good at branding and design. So we designed the labels the best we, and they've gotten better over the years. I look back at my old designs like, oh, that was terrible. But back then it worked, and they were like, okay, this looks very clean design. We love the ingredients that you put in. I wasn't using any preservatives or stabilizers or any of that, because I didn't even know about that. And I'm like, I just want to have it as close to a natural product as possible. They loved it. And then within like 2 months after that meeting, we were in the Ann Arbor Whole Foods, and then it went to Troy, and then Detroit opened, and then East Lansing. And we did that for about over like 5 years. We were in Whole Foods, and then we took it out and just decided to sell exclusively online, direct to consumer. And then we had a pop up um, in Royal Oak at the old building where Burn Rubber first started. We and they had moved on to another location, and that building was vacant, and we had relationships with the owners. So Rick went and asked them like, hey, my wife and I started a skincare company. We just want to do like a pop up for a year. And of course she said okay, and did the pop up for a year. It went really well, and then we pulled everything out, and then just went online. And so that was like in 20 from 20 like 18 to 19.
I have to interrupt because getting into Whole Foods is no small feat. I mean, they
Yeah.
have layers of like how I used to be in the food industry, and just getting
Mhm.
product in there is very difficult, right? They have a
Yes.
very high standard. So how is it that a woman who decides, I'm going to get into this, and you didn't intend to be a natural company, you just that's what you developed, or were you intentionally
Yes.
trying to do or like an organic natural product?
We yeah, so we were intentionally trying to do that. So I never researched, like I just knew that one of the things that I started looking into more once we got into Whole Food was the how companies add stabilizers and things to their
Oh, I
products,
see. Okay.
because it needs longer shelf life. So you don't want to have a product that only lasts 2 years, and you're in millions of stores, and then now the product is expired and you have to get it off the shelves or whatever. So I was like, well, I don't think I want to do that. I want to just focus on it being natural, which is over the years, like there's a gift and a curse with that,
Mhm.
of not adding, preservatives and stuff. But that's what the customer loved. They loved the fact that it was a product that didn't have any of that in it. So we just, continued to move forward with it. And then once we started shipping during the summer and seeing, it's like, okay, sometimes the product melts. What do we do? And I just, added a weather disclaimer on my site saying that, hey, if it melts, you just refrigerate it, it'll solidify again. But we slow down in the summer. And I was like, I'm okay with that. I think what's really helped us is I'm not just chasing after just like money. I like
Right.
the freedom of entrepreneurship and everything. So for us, it wasn't like we got to make the most money possible as quickly as we can. It was like, this is something that I enjoy doing. We're in Whole Foods, and
And you weren't afraid to to learn and grow as you went. You weren't waiting for that perfect product to be special. I mean, you were actually doing Q&A product development as it was also in distribution, which is really very
yeah,
telling, right? Like you just sort of said, I believe in this product. These people believe in this product. I'm going for it, and I'm going to learn as I navigate through this, which is, I
yes,
think, really important for entrepreneurs or women who want to start a business, that don't wait for all the parts and pieces to be ready. Sometimes you just have
yes.
to lean in.
Yeah, and then I think I used to meet so many people and they're like, hey, I'm coming out with this, but I'm waiting for my website to be built. I'm waiting for my website to
Uh-huh.
be built. I'm waiting for this. I'm waiting for, and it's like, just get started. And I tried to find the quickest way to do that. And then you develop and you evolve and you get the right people on your team, but they can't, if you don't have anything to really show anyone, they don't really know how to jump in to help you. If I start a website just with a basic Shopify template or whatever, over the years you meet people that are like, hey, I'm a web designer. I want to help you, make it,
Right.
more user friendly, or, UX writers, how to get your product, your website to show up in the top rankings.
Hmm.
And so as the years develop, we added on and you get better. And I didn't want to just wait until I had all of my ducks in a row. I was still working for years, in corporate America. So well, not years, well, like 2 years. So
Okay.
2013, I started. 2015, I quit my corporate job and we just did business full time. The photos, like when people post their kids or they're doing videos, I
Mhm.
like the people who have like a lot of stuff on their counter in the background.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because I feel like you did not try to move it to a certain area so I could take this picture or get this shot. I like people that show up, like your kid's doing something funny, but you didn't move everything off the counter. Like, cause I have stuff on the counter, it might be milk, it might be cereal that's spilled on like, but a lot of times we're so used to cleaning everything up so that every picture and like every video and stuff is perfect. So we appear to have this super clean home all the time, not realizing like, so no, and my thing is, so no one has anything on their counter anymore. Like
Exactly. Like,
nobody
hmm,
really,
you're
as
right.
hard as it is, like we're so busy, we're being like, you have nothing on your counter ever, or
I
you
know.
only are shooting when the house is clean, and not the reality of, some days it's crazy in the kitchen. So yeah, so that's my thing now, is I like people with stuff
The
on their
messy.
counter.
You like the
Yeah.
messy because we have spent too much time curating these perfect moments. And
Yeah.
I was telling my kids the same thing. We have one of those photo albums
Mhm.
where they all these pictures pop up and it's all our travels and all our happy
Yeah.
moments
Yeah.
and I said I apologize to my boys. I said I'm sorry. I feel like I've given you the wrong impression on life because
Mm.
I'm giving you the highlight reel. The in
Yeah.
between is flipping messy and it's scary
Yeah.
and it's hard and it's not always button up. Don't get confused by these beautiful
Yeah.
real moments. These are amazing. And that's sort of what we live for. And we want to have those moments,
Yeah.
but it doesn't capture the
It's not like
tears,
that.
the yells, the growth, and all of that. And to your point, it's
Yeah.
like we got to get to the Bessie. And I actually write a blog. It's called "To Get Her Joy," and it's
Uh-huh.
about discovering your joy as a woman. But there's a lot of messy in there, and the in betweens. That's where really where the meat of it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Yeah,
and if I go, like, even when you go to someone's house and the pictures and stuff on the wall are all like super nice, I would think the bit funniest and like something that I would love is to see, like, they're all framed, but it's like all these pictures where it's like a kid that has like spaghetti on his face because he's just thrown it over the kitchen. Or you're taking a picture of your son and his room is super
yes,
messy, and
yes,
but they're framed. They're like framed on the wall. I would, oh my God, like I literally was like, can I take a video of your house? Like, I mean, it could still be neat in a nice
right.
way, but
No,
I just like things that appear to be, to be real. And I think a lot of times how even with friendships is, even with our homes, you're like your girlfriends, you don't want them to just pop up if your house is dirty.
yeah,
So we got to plan. It's like, so when can you get together? When can you get together? And then we're like 6 months later before we can even do a book club meeting because everybody's so stressed about like, oh, I got to get the house together and the
mm,
boys do, like, and we're trying to plan and make everything look pristine so we don't pop up on our friends as
right.
much. If
To
you call your friend like, hey, I'm in the neighborhood, they're probably going to stress out. Okay, yeah, come
yeah,
by. But in the before you get there, they're
putting things away. Yeah, absolutely.
cleaning and the dog food that still sitting there. You're like, oh shoot, the dog didn't eat this and it's been here for like a day. Yeah. So
Right.
I just think if we focus more on just being real, we can develop these have these real conversations of not being okay, because it's kind of hard to tell if your counter is always clean.
So true. I love that. I love all your little things saying, because you're really capturing life as it should
Yeah.
be. You know, it is sort of interesting. We've done way too much curating, these
Yes.
perfectionism that just
Oh my
doesn't
God.
exist. It just doesn't
It
exist.
doesn't.
So I love it. So thank you so much for your continued
Thank you.
messaging, your joy. I love everything you're doing. And it sounds like you are moving and just growing and building bigger and better things, and still
Thank you.
spreading a message of empowering others too, which is really cool.
Yeah, and you as well. Like, and I want to get invited. I didn't know you guys had it. Was this an in-person event
Yep.
yesterday?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, let me know. Yeah,
Yep.
because I can walk now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, when I first started learning about you, I'm like, oh, a master's of education. And oh, she's an entrepreneur and all these things. And it all makes sense. You are
Yeah,
actually meant to be a teacher. You are
I
actually meant
am.
to teach
Yeah,
and
thank
impact
you.
people. So keep
Yeah,
doing it, girl.
thank you.